Alright, so I have seriously fallen behind on my audio journals. This one is going to be a week review from February 16th to February 23rd. So exactly 7 days, 1 week, starting on a Friday, which is kind of strange, but let's just get into it and do it. Every day is kind of a lot, so let's see how this goes. But I don't want to make 7 different entries for this because it's going to take a lot of time, and this week looks to be like a very busy week as well. So February 16th's entry is titled Piano and Violin, and I also added some Japanese senden sareta, which means sophisticated. It was a word that my friend from Japan taught me that day, and I said it a lot. So the start of the day was a school field trip. This was the one and only field trip in the term, and we made some wagashi treats. So wagashi is just like a Japanese confection that's made out of stuff like rice, flour, beans, and so on. I actually don't know too much of it other than it looks really cool and it's hard to make unless you're good at crafting, which I'm not really. It's not one of my skills that I really have practiced much in my life, so mine's ended up turning out okay. So that was a fun little thing with the school, with the classmates. And then the next highlight of the day was getting to play some piano with my violin friend. So piano and violin at the same time, like the title suggests. And this time around, I got to really practice and play like a piece that was somewhat prepared. I practiced the piece for maybe 30 minutes total, but it was still good that I got to see it beforehand because it's a brand new thing. And it's cool to play something that isn't just on the spot. So most of the session, since we did book another room that costed around, I think it's like 1,200 yen. So for that hour session, we practiced that piece a good amount. So that was fun because again, I don't really do this very often at all. This is my second time really doing this with a violinist, the same violinist. So I just found it to be a very fun experience. I had to really listen to her playing and not just my own or keeping tempo, especially since we're playing something by Debussy, which has some rubato. And I found out that she has like conducting experience. So I thought that was really cool to learn from someone with that experience. It was definitely a challenge, I'll say that much. And it was fun. I pretty much gave it like my full focus and effort. And afterwards, we went to an izakaya and just ate and talked. A lot of good food, and I don't really remember exactly what that izakaya was called. It might have been Rakui Ika Diner, maybe based on my search of Apple Maps, but I'll ask my friend. Either way, they had really good karaage, tempura, and a bunch of other stuff that we ended up getting. It was mostly her getting it because I couldn't really read the menu very well because it was all in Japanese, and I was pretty much open to trying anything. But I got to know her a good amount and just like talk about a lot of fun stuff. Actually to the point where we ended up staying a lot longer than expected, and so we missed the last train or last buses. Luckily for me, we were still in an area where I could just walk back, but she had to take a taxi back. Luckily, there was no issue with that. But I definitely consider this one of my favorite days of Japan so far. I swear I sound like a broken record because I've been saying that a lot, but I just had a lot of fun doing the whole piano and violin thing and getting to know someone new. And it was a type of conversation that to me felt very meaningful. It's like I'm forming a bond with someone new, getting to know them more, they're getting to know me more. So a new connection is formed, and for me that's one of my favorite things, like favorite feelings, I guess. Anyways, let's move on. So actually February 17th was a day where I didn't do too much other than editing. And I'll talk more about that in a later video, so let's move on. February 18th, I got to visit Uji with my friend from Japan. We went to the place that had the 10 yen coin, like that tempo. It's called the Byodo-in. Uji is also very famous for having matcha stuff, so pretty much every shop there sold like matcha udon, matcha ramen, matcha takoyaki, stuff like that. Honestly, it's more of like a gimmick rather than something that is actually different. Like you don't really taste the matcha flavor that much. It's still good ramen, it's still good udon and so on, but it's more like the food is just slightly more green rather than actually having a stronger matcha taste. But overall, I had a good time with it, and it's kind of like a fun gimmick. It's like one of those things that like a place for certain things, and Japan really leans on that. It's like Nara because it has deer stuff, so there's deer shops and deer food and so on. And so Uji is the matcha place. It's also like a Tales of Genji type of place as well, since there's the museum for Genji. I don't know too much about it, but I learned about him today from my friend. It's apparently a very popular story, one of the first, I think, stories that was preserved in Japan. So super interesting. I'll probably look more into that at a certain point. My friend and I also went to the Cremia store there, which is the ice cream brand that I really, really like. And they had the strawberry version where they put like a strawberry on it and some strawberry flakes. She got the matcha version, which I tried in Osaka the previous week, and they're both really, really good. I highly recommend trying out the different flavored ones. It's mostly just like still the original, but with some extra toppings on it basically. And the original is amazing, so that was definitely a treat, especially since it was her first time really eating the original version, so I was happy that she liked it. But we checked out the popular places in Uji, like the bridges, Ujigami Shrine. We did a little bit of a hike and then saw a museum, and that was basically it for this day. I had a really, really fun time actually. It was a bit more of a relaxed type of day. We took it slowly and just enjoyed ourselves. And then February 19th, this was a school day, which I ended up skipping. It was my first time skipping school since I was hanging out with my Japanese friend again. And for me, the way I see it is if I'm hanging out with my friend and speaking Japanese and learning from her, it's way more effective for my learning than actually going to school, especially since Monday's sensei for me is not very matched to what I prefer when it comes to teaching. Like, he's not as energetic and a bit more like, I guess, textbook-like, where they just state the rules and facts, giving information versus like trying to make it fun in a way. So I didn't mind skipping. And I had a lot of fun because we ended up going to a shrine area that had a lot of plum trees. So apparently, I learned this on this day, plum trees in Japan only bloom towards the end of winter, before spring happens. So spring is when, obviously, the famous sakura trees bloom. But the plum trees, which are actually like pretty much as beautiful as sakura trees, I would say, they come in a lot of different colors, well, mostly pink, violet, and white, but the combinations and the different like vibrance that they come in, it's quite beautiful when put together. So I very much loved experiencing that. And afterwards, we watched the new Haikyuu movie that came out, the one where they're up against Nekoma. And overall, that was a pretty fun movie to watch. Despite not having subtitles, it was my first Japanese movie ever that I watched with no subtitles. Luckily, I read the manga, so I sort of know like what happened, and you can guess at a lot of things based on context if you know the story and the characters. So for me, there wasn't any real downsides to watching the movies without subtitles. I got to experience like listening and understanding probably like 40% of the dialogue, while also still understanding what was happening, especially since it's a sports anime. And overall, I'd say the animation, top notch, top quality. And that's one of the reasons why I've always really liked Haikyuu, is that they really have impact when you feel them hit the ball, when things happen, when they're playing the game. And they really took that up a level, which is very, very cool. Like, I highly recommend checking it out. But that was pretty much it for this day. Next day, February 20th. This day was a little interesting. It was me doing some voiceover really quickly for some work, and then practicing some piano at Yodobashi, and then eating dinner with one of the new friends I've made in Japan. It was a cold soba and tempura spot in Porta. I guess it's not really known for just that, but it's a variety place, I guess, variety. Then we walked around, just chatted and talked, and that's pretty much it. I did a lot of video editing in the morning for this day as well. But despite not saying too much about it, I did very much enjoy the dinner and conversation with my new friend who I don't get to see too often, so I definitely valued this day. Okay, moving on. So this is February 21st, and in the morning we ate at a place called Aiba Curry. I don't know why I said that curry in that way. It should have been kare, but Aiba Curry, which is a really, really good place, actually. Definitely get chicken katsu or just katsu in general instead of the beef one. Chicken or pork, in my opinion, is better for katsu. But this one is a newer friend, and I got to get to know her and talk to her a good amount, and she's a really cool person, so hopefully we can hang out some more. But there wasn't too much time, so I basically ran to school afterwards. Made it with 5 minutes to spare right about, and after that some of the friends from school went to Koko Curry to eat the spiciest level. I'll probably release a little bit of a short video about that one. Interestingly, the spiciest level isn't that bad. It is spicy, but like when you initially eat it, it's not that spicy, and then after maybe about 30 seconds, it becomes significantly more spicy or spicier. So that was a fun experience, even if it wasn't like that. To me, it didn't taste like that great, but it was a fun experience to have everyone like gather up I think there was like 8 of us, and just try like the spiciest level cocoa curry. It definitely felt like we were a slight hassle at times because the communication was not great, but because they didn't give us the spiciest level until we had to ask twice. Apparently, like they just didn't understand us the first time. That was also my bad, I'd say, because I wasn't paying attention to when we did order. But that's about it for this one. I know I'm going pretty fast in summarizing these, but overall I'd say like each of these days is a very, very fun day and like filled with really good memories that I know I'm somewhat skipping over, but I have it here in day 1 as highlights. Okay, we're almost done. February 22nd, we did a video consulting call. Met up with a new person, a new friend, and they're actually like a breakdancer, which is really cool. She's up and coming and also has gone to events like Red Bull, BC1 and all that stuff, so that was like super dope. So we just walked and talked for a bit, and then afterwards I just hung out with another friend, ate some food, worked on some videos, and finally stretched for the first time in a while. It's been really difficult to get some of the old routine in Japan, like stretching and calisthenics and all that stuff. So that was really good. I was actually on a call with a friend, so it helped to be on a call because like sometimes I like stretching while I'm talking to my friends on the phone. Okay, last day. So February 23rd, last day for this video. I'll talk about the weekend on a different video because that was actually really, really fun. For this one, we went to Otsu, which is right next to Lake Biwa. It was kind of like a rainy day, so maybe the weather made it not as good as I thought it would be. It was cool still, but out of every place I've visited so far, Otsu is just okay. It's nice. It's nice. It was a nice day overall because I spent it with friends, and there was a really, really nice temple there for sure. That temple alone is probably worth checking out. I just enjoyed it a lot. Sorry, it's not even a temple. It's called the Omi Jingu Shrine, so it's a shrine. I have to get better at distinguishing between shrines and temples. Basically for this one, because it's a shrine, we didn't have to pay for it. Before the shrine, we ate some Chinese food, we saw the lake, got to talk to one of my school friends, my classmates, a good amount. Just like bond more. Every time we see each other, every time we talk, it just feels like, you know, we're getting closer and closer, so I'm happy about that. I was super tired that day though. I remember kind of like just napping while waiting for food at a cafe. But after we went back to Kyoto Station, we actually went to Kameoka Station, which is where there was like a lantern festival type of thing. And that was a good experience. Overall, I've seen a lantern festival where you let them go and they fly up in Arizona before, and that was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Fortunately or unfortunately for this one, like it's one of the ones where you hold it on a string so they don't like fly away. In Arizona, you know, there's a lot of desert areas, so they said like, you know, they would pick it up later and all that stuff. But for Japan, when they're doing it, there's just way too much stuff around, so it does make sense that it's not the type where you just let it go and fly away. But I think that took away from some of the beauty. But at the same time, I know it's better for the environment. After that, we went back to Kyoto Station and ate some udon in beyond the JR ticket gates. There's like a very, very cheap udon place that's like, I think 350 yen for a bowl, which is kind of crazy. It's like a $2 to $3 meal and it tastes great. And that's basically it. I know I rushed through a lot of these, but I've been figuring that doing them in a more detailed fashion is going to be way too difficult to catch up on. So I just wanted to at least talk about them a little bit. I think after I move share houses, there's going to be a change in format. I'm not going to do these as often. Perhaps I'll do them like more so talking to the camera and really getting into the highlights. And instead of like audio journals, more so maybe just like video stories or something where I can practice what I really want to practice, which is storytelling. And I know for storytelling, there needs to be sort of like a goal, an objective, instead of just like, oh, this happened, and they're all like disconnected. So I'm gonna see how that goes. Right now, I'm also talking a little bit fast because I'm running out of time, but we're gonna move share houses tomorrow. So this is gonna be a very interesting experience to finally be in a share house where it's like, almost like the community is just like, not necessarily forced on you, but we'll see what happens. Highly encouraged. That's what I would call it. The community is highly encouraged, or you being part of it is highly encouraged. But it is kind of crazy that February is almost over, but it's not over until it's over. So I'll talk about that when the time comes. Okay, that's it for this one. Just a catch up for what I've been doing in the past week. Kind of rapid fire, but just wanted to get it out there. I'll catch you guys in the next one.